thank you. We have here our topic for this webinar is leaders in managing intergenerational communication in higher education. So first of all, thank you for being with us today. And let me introduce our first speaker is Lauren Chua Gracia, Vice President of External Relations and Internationalization, De La Salle University. Yeah, she is the Vice President of External Relations and Internationalization at De La Salle University and heads the Internationalization Committee in the Asia Pacific region for the International Association of Lasallian Universities. She has also represented the Philippines on behalf of its Commission on Higher Education on various assignments with university mobility in Asia, the Pacific, UMAP, and also ASEAN International Mobility for Students. Currently, she is president of the UMAP Philippine Council and has recently been nominated a board member of GE4, an international network of universities. Dr. Chua Gracia is a member of the American Psychological Association, the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, and Psychological Association of the Philippines. All right, our next speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Yazrina Yahya from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. She is currently an Associate Professor at the Faculty of Information Science and Technology at UKM, where her academic career began in 1997. She was seconded to the Higher Education Leadership Academy, AKEPT, as the Deputy Director for Center Leadership Sustainability. Her task at AKEPT requires her to establish global leadership and management programs that will assist the leaders and communities of local and ASEAN academic institutions. This includes positioning AKEPT as the leadership academy in the ASEAN region and globally by conducting projects, webinars, and summits. She is an advocate practitioner in promoting internationalization of higher education, particularly in ensuring harmonization of education for the 21st century. Yeah. All right. Let us begin with my first question regarding our topic today. Um, can each of you briefly describe your background and experience with intergenerational communication in higher education? Yes, Dr. Lauren?
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Um, my career actually is a combination of academe and industry practice. I work with students on campus. I work with students as a teacher because I teach from undergrad all the way to graduate school. But at the same time, I serve as an administrator that works closely with students because I was with student affairs, and at the same times and my other assignments was working with alumni. When you work with alumni, you also do industry academic linkages. So this is internship and the whole cooperative education development. So I have worked with a lot of people from various age groups. I'm in my 60s, so you can just imagine. I've worked with teenagers across different generations, and it's very interesting that you know you notice differences. Not so much, okay. Well, if you're talking about context, not so much about the generation itself, but the advent of technology and its impact on people. So as technology changed, people were using different mediums, and because of that, the way you communicated with them also changed. So I think that this is where I'm coming from, that the focus shouldn't just be on which generation you came from, but what technology did you have during your time. So given my age, okay, I still experienced a generation that communicated primarily using, that big clunky telephone. And I also saw the first generation of cell phones that looked like a brick, and they were really heavy like a brick, right? So they're a far cry from the technology that we have today. And also, there was no internet back then. So research was very challenging. You really had to go to the library and go through all the dust and the heavy books, okay? and it's so totally different. So I'd like to de-emphasize the generation, the differences in generation, but more like the differences in technology and how they have affected the behavior of people in their interaction, in their communication.
Right.
Right. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, pass to you, Dr. Yas. Yeah.
Yeah. As Ma'am D has already read my particular background, I'm an academia as well, basically. So I teach and I also do consultations and also give trainings. Now, cut across my experience, I'm slightly younger than Dr. Lin, slightly, okay? That shows how old I am as well, basically. Yeah. So with that experience, I've been outside of in the industry, particularly when I did my attachment. And during that particular time, of course, I have to deal with the youngsters because being in a corporate organization like Air Asia, it's completely different. All right, it's completely different. Meaning, from the higher education going to the corporate, it's a different setup, different types of people. So my kind of experience varies. Like Dr. Lane as well. I've dealt with students, younger students, and year by year, my students are now at the age of my children. All right. It used to be during my first year when I was teaching, my students were older than me. I was pretty much very young then. So meaning that when I get into class, seeing people with white hair, really terrifies me because you really have to be able to communicate and teach them by that time and to make sure that they have the confidence in me. Right. And then over the years, when time passed by, then I realized, hey, my students are getting younger. And today, when I meet the students, right, they are my children's age. So I tend to treat them like my children, particularly, right? So in terms of when we talk about intergenerational communication in the higher education, it cuts across everyone because we all knew in the university itself or in the higher education, you've got the professors who can have very white hair, all right, who are very, very much very senior. And there are renowned professors, in fact, more senior, right? And then we have those middle ones, like you say, the millennials, the Generation X, and then we have also the younger ones, which are Gen Alpha, right, who are very much into different ways of communicating. Now, I believe with what Dr. Lin has said. All right. Now, over the years, the communication between these generations, it differs because it we were brought up in different time zones, basically. Like Dr. Lin said, okay, she said earlier on that we were never exposed to internet. When I grew up, we were never exposed to internet. We didn't have internet, let alone a computer, because it was very, very expensive back then, right? So we have to fall back to the library. There was no handphones. Of course, I also came across, my dad bought the first handphone, which is very heavy, the brick looking handphones. And I don't think the younger generation knows about that. All right. So, and when we were brought up, the baby boomers, we are very respectful. We are very afraid of our parents. And the Generation X, like myself, I listened to my parents very, very much. And I was not entitled per se to say how I feel, right? But we grow up and we manage things how it is. And those backgrounds actually provide us on how to communicate and how we respond to everyone else. Unlike the younger generations, where when they were born, like my children, they were born with iPad in their hands, basically. All right, when they open their eyes, they've already seen the computers. So that differentiates. And we have not yet talked about the kind of languages that they use when they are communicating. So of course, in the higher education, particularly when you have a group of people, so many people in one particular institution, there needs to be a certain way of how we need to communicate in order that things will be better, and the students themselves would be able to understand what they are going through and what they are learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Good opinion. Yeah,
Yeah.
because during our study time, I think we are about the same. Yes, and me.
Mhm.
When the lecturer cancel the classes, we are already in the class.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So
Right.
we walk. we walk or we took the bus and we are already seated in the class, then only the administration from the office will tell, no class today, your lecturer is sick. So everyone was just saying that, oh, well, we just came and we are so tired. But now, before the class, the student will text, madam, do we have class tomorrow? So that is the most easiest way, yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
but I do believe the technology and also the way of communicating with the students is, we are not trying to be like them, but we should also understand them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So and let's go to our next topic on the challenges. What are some of the key challenges you have observed, and when it comes to intergenerational communication in higher education setting?
Mm.
Mm.
Well, basically, you have to learn the kind of language each generation speaks. If you've noticed, they speak differently. Even the buzzwords, like, so there's some words that a generation will not even use.
Exactly. For
So,
instance, slay,
hey, you show
they use slay, and I was like,
depends on the words that you use. So it's very interesting that when you encounter a group, you have to first follow how they're talking and then listen to the buzzwords that they use. So you establish the time in which they were born, the generation that they had, and also the kind of technology they use. So it's challenging because it's not just understanding how they speak and what buzzwords they use, but it's also how they would prefer to communicate. That's also dependent on technology. Like there's a generation that really wants face to face. That's the only way they're going to get something happening. But there's some they're fine with just email or just a phone call sometimes, or they use social media. I've noticed that at first I found it challenging when I couldn't see a person face to face, because I come from a generation where face to face encounters were more meaningful. But eventually I realized social media is faster. I don't even have to make an appointment. I
Uh,
just on Messenger, on Facebook, WhatsApp, all these other different platforms, and I'll get a response, sometimes in seconds. Okay. Whereas if you're going to make an appointment in the traditional way, it takes ages, right? And sometimes, email is also not dependable because sometimes someone will not answer emails. They don't even have, well, I guess the perception of common courtesy also varies across people. There was a generation that really immediately replied, but there was a generation that would just allow the email to get buried. So you can tell also from these things. So I think it's very challenging looking at it from the perspective of how people respond. So it's not just how they communicate, but the speed with which they respond, and also the type of response that they give, and the comfort level also.
okay, I would like to add on to what Dr. Lin has mentioned, all right? Because partly is the way different generations were brought up. So formality levels is always different, right? So for the older generations, we always prefer formal communication, the way that we speak, the way we articulate the words that we chose. We are very, very careful. Unlike the younger ones, all right, they are more into casual languages. I, I don't have to say, or talk to my students. In fact, talking to my children, the level that they're talking to me, I would have told them, look, if the way, the lingo that you're talking to me, if I were to speak like that to your grandmother, it's definitely a no-no. All right. So formality levels has also changed. So that becomes a challenges, because if people like me, Generation X, who usually sits in between, we can actually somehow tolerate, perhaps. But if you go to the baby boomers, which are more senior, they would have seen it a different way. All
Yeah.
right, having using different lingo, having using different types of formality. All right, because I remember during my younger days, if I were to meet the elderly, okay, it is a norm for us to actually go and kiss the hands of the elderly. But the younger generation still does that, depending on how they were brought up. But the more modern ones, all right, it doesn't seem to bother them, basically.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
that's one. And another challenge is also is the respect for hierarchy. Okay, for us, the older generations, basically, we are more hierarchical view. We always respect the boss, the one who's at the top. All right, and we value the clear lines of authority. Unfortunately, for the younger ones, all right, the line of authority seems to dim, or not to disappear, but to dim, because
Mhm.
they would favor a more, what we say, egalitarian approach, all right, which can actually create tension in interaction. Okay, because the ones who sits at the top, usually, particularly, not doesn't matter whether it's higher education or in organization, all right, they want some respect. All right, because we come from a different generation. But the younger one, the way that they speak, they want to be listened. All right, and their expectations are also usually different than ours. Like Dr. Lin was saying, the older generation, sometimes when we receive email, okay, never mind, we put that aside for a while. Okay, but the younger generation would expect us to have a frequent and immediate feedback. All right, so
Yeah.
with that, if we don't reach that consensus, that is going to create challenges. Okay, and of course, learning preferences.
Mm.
I have to thank the pandemic in a way, all right, in a way, because if it's not because of the pandemic, all right, the older generation will find it hard to go on online. And even until today, my students still prefer to go online, despite that the university is saying that it has to be face to face. And
Yes.
they are, yeah, they prefer to have more interactive technology enhanced kind learning of experience using all these applications that can be something that as an older generation that you go like, huh, do I have to use this? But in a way, for us to understand that, to understand them, we have to do so. Yeah.
Yes.
uh yeah, so that's some of the things that I could add on.
Yeah.
Actually, remember I was referring to language. I can
Mhm.
give you an example. Like the earlier generation of students would call me Miss
Mhm.
Lane. So they always use Miss.
Yeah.
This is like someone from the traditional schools, they call Miss and Sir, right?
Yep.
So Miss Lane. Then as time went by, okay, have you noticed they don't even say Miss or Doctor? They'll
Mhm.
just say Lane.
Oh,
Yeah, even
they
the
will call me.
honorifics. Yeah, they drop the honorifics. Notice they don't call you miss, they don't call you doctor. They'll just say, "Hey, Lane," right? So
Wow.
as the generations evolve, it's something like you're more like a colleague or a
Mhm.
friend rather than a figure of authority. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's the technology, the language, the evolution of relationships actually. So some of the older, I noticed some of the older faculty. I remember one of my former teachers actually getting angry because her student did not call her doctor, and then she actually told the class, "You have to call me Doctor so and so. I earned my PhD. It took me 10 years to finish that. So you have to give me that title." So it's
Mm,
like, I said, I can't even do that to my class. I can't tell that. But see, she belongs to a much, much older
mm,
generation. I mean, way back. So for someone of that age group, titles are very important, honorifics, and also because these are all translated to forms of respect. But
Yep.
you see, younger people don't interpret it that way. And it's not intended to be offensive, right? They don't mean to offend you, or they don't mean that they don't want to respect you, but it's their way of connecting with you. And so your name is part of
Yep.
that connection. So,
Mhm.
but it's very interesting how different generations react, to the shifts and changes.
mm, mm.
Definitely. Ma'am, there's another one that I would like to add on. I suddenly think about it, comes to my mind. All right. If you look at the younger generations, in terms of, we are talking the ones that has been born since perhaps starting 1995 and above, yeah, until 2000, until today, the work-life integration, they are very much prioritize their work-life balance.
Mm.
And they would jump jobs easily if they're not happy at one particular place. Unlike us, all right, the older, the generation X, baby boomers, we tend to prioritize our job security. And of course, we have different views on our professional commitment, right? That is why we see that in the organizations of late, if you have a group of younger generations, even my students, 1 year they'll be working in one particular organization, the next year I see them in another,
Yeah,
because to them,
job hopping.
life balance, yeah, work life balance is very important. They are not happy, they just move on. All right. So, but if I were to do that during my time, my mom would say, "What are you doing? You need to stay at that office until the day you retire." It's completely, yeah, yeah. So,
Actually, a study was done in the 90s about the attention span of that particular generation. And then I think they found out during that time the attention span of kids was 6 seconds. So you can imagine how fast that is. So
Yeah.
it explains why, maybe their attention has also, bled into jobs, no? So the way they look at jobs, their attention also is limited. And so, they want something new. They want to change or a change of scenery.
They
So
love challenges. They love challenges, I guess. Mm.
yeah, yeah. Because, and that also translates. Part of it, I would say, I won't say blame it, but it has to do with the technology. Because by using the technology, things gets very fast. So
Yeah.
you see, yeah, the younger generations, the way they drive is different. All right. You can see on the road. In fact, you see one car very slow, then you look at the driver. Okay, that's about my
Orang
age.
tua.
Orang tua, elderly.
Actually.
actually, the younger generation have poorer peripheral vision because remember, this is the younger generations, especially with the advent of desktops,
Mm-hmm.
your view is smaller. And
Yeah.
then when kids play a lot of video games, they stay at home, they don't go out. So
Yeah.
they don't have sports and bigger venues. So the eyes are limited to just that screen that they have. It's worse with a cell phone or a Game Boy, right? Because your view is no longer like that. It's no longer big, right?
Mm.
So you observe, it's usually young people who have a lot of scratches on the sides of their cars and little bumps here and there because the peripheral vision is very poor. So this
Yeah.
whole stereotype that older people are the ones who don't drive well is actually wrong. It's the younger people who get into these scrapes more because of the peripheral vision. It's
Yeah.
shrunk.
Mm.
But I think those are challenges, Ma'am D, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Challenges, and also I think we have answered already the third questions on the differences in communication styles. Yeah,
There
we
are
cannot.
differences.
Yeah, we cannot just maintain the way how we communicate during our days. Yeah, their time is really different. Yeah, and how do communication styles typically differ between generation, such as baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z within higher education? We have discussed some of it already. Is there anything else that you like to add in?
You know,
The
if
in-
I may, Dr. Lane, for the baby boomers, the way I see my professors, right, they are very much emphasized on politeness and, of course, the
mm,
formality and behavior. When they explain, they're very calm and they go word by word. Okay, they're very, very particular, right? But for the Generation X, on the other hand, like people like me, we are so used to having technology as well. All right, we are very comfortable with technology in a way, but we are also very comfortable with whatever tools that we are using, email, telephone communication. So it doesn't matter whether it is face to face, but having face to face, or whether it's online. But the way that we communicate as well is slightly different, all right, than the older generations. We are not so much of concern of the words used, unlike the baby boomers. Yeah.
mm,
Uh, yeah, and unlike the millennials who are born in from 80, if I'm not mistaken, 1980s to 1996, I think. All right,
mm,
they on the other hand prefers instant messaging, texting. That is why for the past previous years, we've seen all sorts of short forms that I was grappling to understand. OOTD, LOL, AMA.
Mhm.
When they are texting to you,
language.
what?
See?
What is this? And the younger generations, the ones that's born after 96 until 2000, 2015, 2018, they are now more on visual content. That's where you see a lot of them are on TikTok, on Instagrams, and all that.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's different.
it's it's very interesting also how they interpret face to face or connecting. We used to think that face to face and connecting means I have to be live with another person. But, I noticed that the younger generation now, they're comfortable with having a face to face on a virtual
Mm-hmm.
medium. So,
Mm-hmm.
you notice your cell phone, you can open it, and everything from Messenger, Viber, and all these other social media apps, you can just switch on the camera. And then
Yep.
that's already a face to face. So, see, the whole interpretation of a face to face or meaningful encounter has also transitioned. So, an earlier generation, I have to touch you, I have to face you,
Yeah.
right? But with the younger generation, open the cell phone and then camera, and then we can just chat. I can be at home, I can be in a car, and this is already connecting for a lot of them. But see, that's what worries me, and that's what makes it. It's a difference, but it's also a challenge and a worrisome thing, because it's still a very artificial transaction from the perspective that no real socialization really happens. It's still on a platform. It's not, live. I
Human
think that,
touch.
yeah, the touch, exactly. You can't kiss a screen and hug a cell phone.
I'm
Really?
hugging you now, yes. I'm hugging you.
So it's really tough, no? And I think well, I'm speaking as a psychologist. It's this whole thing depersonalizes a lot of the transactions, and this is probably the reason why you have a lot of depression and all these other associated problems with depression, because there's no contact. Nothing beats human contact, no? And as human beings, we're social creatures, and so the medium, the phone, the computer screen is really not sufficient. So you can have all these gadgets on the planet, but it still will not, like I said, you can't kiss it, you can't hug it, and of
Yeah.
course, it can't kiss you back and hug you back also.
Yeah,
So,
but Dr. Laurie, with
curiosity.
technology also, they use emotions, the emoji. Yeah, they say, okay, thank you, madam. Then they will
Yeah.
heart, or they will show emoji of hugging. It is face to face. I mean, the real one, they won't do that. They won't hug us. They won't kiss us, right? So this is, I think, the advantage of having it, this all this technology embedded in the communication. But of course, when you type, that is not exactly the same as how you felt, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes people will misinterpret, yeah, when suddenly you use all caps lock,
Mhm.
yeah, or red, or
And
something
the
red.
interpretation of the emojis can
Yes,
vary. You could make a
Yeah.
mistake, you know?
yeah.
Right. One of the things, Madam D, right, as much as yeah, technology helps the youngsters to communicate easily. All right, it helps for parents as well when children are abroad, because I remembered last time communication was very difficult. Yeah,
Yeah,
for you to
yeah,
be in touch. So technology helps in a way, but then again, of course, I do agree with technology. It doesn't feel, you don't have that whole feeling. It's like looking at a person eye to eye, but when you look at the computer, it may not seem to look like eye to eye. All right, so it feels different, basically. So
yeah,
that kind of emotion, is something that is hard to portray unless you are in that real situation.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. So that would be the challenge. That's why if you meet the youngsters, the students particularly, they would rather text you to ask question rather than meet to you face to face.
yeah.
Because
Mm.
the minute you look at them, and then they will look at elsewhere. They wouldn't want to look directly at you.
Yeah. Or they
Yeah,
will say, "Oh no, no, I have nothing to say. My friend will say something. Would like to say something."
exactly. All right. So that would become a challenge for them, especially when they have to face their immediate bosses or
Mhm.
the immediate people around them. Yeah. As much as we say technology helps, but there are certain things I believe, like Dr. Lin say, we have to keep it as how it used to be, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. All
And
right.
actually, you introduce a whole world of problems when people detach from, physical contact.
Mm, mm, mm.
actually you really need the whole physical act. I mean, it's like, I'm sure you guys had this in Psych 101, right?
Mhm.
Babies used to die a lot in the nursery at hospitals. Why? Because they found out later on it was not just about feeding the babies, but you had to pick them up,
Mm.
embrace them,
Issue,
you
yeah.
know not just for the burping,
Yeah.
but really the human contact. So they actually studied that, and they found out infant mortality was reduced when the kids were carried and lifted, and there was
Mhm.
physical contact. So this is a surefire way to lose kids when there's no human contact.
Yep.
Mm.
Uh, One of the things also that's a challenge, Ma'am D, all right, in the higher education, particularly when we use so much of technology and online, right, I seem not to know my students well. Okay,
Yeah,
unlike if I'm
correct.
in a class face to face, I would face them, I would actually remember their faces. But
Mhm.
when you are online, they don't put their face. And even if they put their face, it can be a cartoon face. So I would have no idea who is behind the screen, particularly, right? So that is how I would say the difficulty that I faced. And on top of that, unfortunately, there are people. I mean, we can't avoid when people took advantage of technology, all right, where we find students cheating. They want to get good results, yeah, using technology as well. So they cheat on
Yeah.
whatever reasons. Yeah. So
Mhm.
that is a challenge, particularly in higher education. And that is why a lot of the professors wouldn't want to use technology. Okay, because to them, is the cause of cheating, is the cause of people do not want to come to class, is the cause that I don't know my students,
Mm.
so it gets, yeah, so that's something very difficult when it comes to higher education. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is difficult also for us to make
Mhm.
questions that
Mm,
they don't copy.
exactly.
Right.
Right.
We
Yeah.
really have to do like a case study that they don't copy, they don't ask ChatGPT and all those things. So it's
Yeah.
really challenges. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. I think we go to our fourth question on the technology's role. How has the advent of new communication technologies influenced intergenerational communication on campus?
Okay, I actually echo what Yasrina mentioned earlier. That after the lockdown, we want the students to come back because
Yeah.
it's important for them to be physically on campus. And so the human interaction continues. But, she did mention that some students don't like to come back because they prefer, just being at home and then just going online. So actually, um, the pandemic was both good and bad in the sense that we went online and then
Mhm.
we found the virtual world was so great, but
Mhm.
at the same time it opened a whole world of problems, right? Because
Yeah.
resistance to go back. So I think that the good part is that okay, we know that we can go beyond email, and social media is a wonderful opportunity to reach others. Like I was mentioning, opening the video part of your WhatsApp or Messenger, whatever, no Viber you're on, and so um, this actually is a great way to teach students also because they become creative. You mentioned TikTok, yes, they can make wonderful presentations on TikTok. So, you have less boring presentations now because of TikTok. But of course, technology can be abused, as you mentioned, the cheating. And also, um, there are more instances of plagiarism. So while we do turn it in and there's a way to check, still it doesn't stop the students. And sometimes it becomes something like institutional memory at least for my part. When I actually recognized I sat for this thesis, you probably thought it was old enough for you to. So at the end of the day, I realized, hey, I beat technology, institutional memory. But, you know, um, I think that we set protocols in place because you have research ethics that also, monitor AI, chat GPT, and all these possible ways by which students and researchers, not just the students, but you can have faculty also, plagiarizing work. So sure, we have more knowledge, more access, greater access, faster access. So that's the contribution of technology, so we can do better research and all. But at the same time, it comes with a whole load of problems too. See,
Yep.
so with more information coming in, there's always the off chance that someone say, "Oh, I'm sure no one remembers this," or sure this is old enough. So, you know, it's actually a mix of good and bad things
Yeah.
that happen, right? So, sure, you get a lot of information, but also that information gets abused and cheated on. And
Yep.
then the other thing also is that cyberbullying is a problem.
Mhm.
um, because, well, technology helps the kids socialize on that platform. Of all things, even bullying can happen on it. And
Mhm.
the damage actually goes faster because it's on the Ethernet, right? Or the, it's just so fast. And so
Yep.
then I realize that a student or a faculty's reputation can be ruined so quickly, you know? And at the end of the day, sometimes I wonder, do people still know the truth? Okay, because it becomes misinformation, or it's just really sabotaging a reputation. And this is what makes me very sad because, while the school has a policy in place for cyberbullying, it still isn't enough. It still needs to evolve to include all the other damage that could happen. Because, okay, as an analogy, when you get wounded on any part of your body, okay, you scab, no, or you scar, but then you
Mhm.
heal, right? And it's finished. But an emotional, psychological, mental scar, oh, you never really forget. That's why that whole saying to forgive and forget, that's actually a lie. Because you come around to forgiving as a matter of
Forget.
yeah, but you never really forget, right? So the mind is such a cruel how they call this system, because it does remember these things, right? And so no, not the mind, but memory, is such a cruel thing because you do remember. And so cyberbullying has just magnified this whole opportunity to do damage. And some people don't care, and then, well, for hackers who are very good at hiding their identity, sometimes you can't even trace back who started it or who was the one who did it. And I think because of that, that confidence in being able to hide or to remain anonymous or to use a fake account, whatever, there's more damage that's happening also out there.
Mm.
So while schools take measures for protecting their students and faculty, it's still not enough. In fact, if I reflect on it, there's a policy it's a blanket policy that just says any member of the academic community, but then the specifics, it's not really laid down. So in the hands of a good defense lawyer, the perp can get away, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so it's a relatively new domain that still needs to be addressed, no? Because I think we're learning as we go along. So, something blows up and then we do something. But you see, it's a slow process, okay? And so I think that some students have become more frightened as a consequence, but others have become braver. So it depends on whose side you're on, right? So if I really want to bully somebody, I could become braver because I know how to hide and do all this stuff, but for those who are afraid of technology, they'll be more afraid, right? But also those users might you know stop themselves from using the technology to a certain extent because of what's happening. So this is terrible. I've seen so many cases in the past few years, even before the pandemic, and it's really, really horrible. So it used to be, our generation, we had the hate letters,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. All
But
these
now,
crying letters.
you letters just reach a few people, right? Just reach everyone. But now the internet, the email, and social media, it reaches everybody. And I'm amazed because it even reaches people you don't know or who
Yeah.
are outside of that circle of people who heard about it or started it. So it's scary. You go around the world now with all this. So it's amazing. I've had an experience like that where I actually asked someone from the other side of the planet, is this true? Because I got an email that said this. I mean,
Mm,
I that never happened before, right?
mhm.
Yeah. Uh, I think, Mamdi, what Dr. Lin has mentioned as well, well, the advent of communication technologies is actually has a significant influence to intergenerational communication, particularly on campus. All right, because on the good side, it increases our accessibility and it's very very convenient. So it's 24/7. Okay, connectivity particularly. So that is why sometimes you see your students would just text you in the middle of the night because
Yes,
they are able to access you, right? Which we rarely do last time. There's no way that we're
that
going to
is
call our
helpline.
professors. Yeah.
Line,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
While doing the assignment in the middle of the night,
Exactly.
suddenly I'm stuck.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
just give a question.
Which is true, right? So it's 24/7 connectivity. So that allows the students to actually have immediate communication. Like I told you, the younger ones, they want an immediate feedback, right? So I've always told my students, look, if you're going to text me after 6 o'clock, there's no way I'm going to respond to you immediately. All right, because it's already after my office hours. So don't expect me to respond until the next day. Okay, so I have already prepared them mentally. So that's one of the things that we have to learn to communicate to them, right? But having said that, also, it helps with the technology, the good side. It allows remote learning and work, right? Particularly for us who will not be able to make it to class and how we can replace the class. So that gives us some flexibility. And of course, now with the technology, that are the bad sides Dr. Lin has mentioned. I'm mentioning the good ones. With the technology, it allows me actually to get my students to work with students from other countries online, okay, via projects and whatnot. So they would be able, although it can be superficial firstly, right, but it is a good start basically. The only thing is that how can we bridge, yeah, the generational gap basically, because the students, like you say, they are so much on the social media and they can get very hooked up. And to make things worse, is not the social media now. You have all sorts of online TVs. All right. You have Netflix, you've got View, you've got God knows what more. Every God knows what more that they spend their time. All right. They get addicted to those things. So this will create that kind of gap. All right. Because the platform that is being made available to them. Yeah. So yeah. So that's one of the good things. One of the bad things,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
cyberbullying and all that. Yeah.
Mm. Actually, it's the way how they use the technology. They
Yes.
have to use it wisely. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it brings the good and the bad things too. All right, we go to our last question, and we have 10 minutes. Yeah, or maybe more because just now we were talking. Yeah, we were introducing ourselves and everything. So the last one is on the effective strategies. Can you share some strategies that have proven effective in bridging communication gaps between these different generations in higher education?
Mm.
Mm.
Actually, what I would do during the lockdown, um, I would actually invite my students to contact me outside of our class hours. You know, we'd have what do you call this? It's like a night together where we could just talk about anything, not class related. So
Mm.
it was an opportunity. Like there was one time we had a yoga class. Simple yoga online, and then another time when we had a party where you brought your own drinks and snacks, and you talked uh, about a lot of different topics, that again were not part of class. So this was done virtually, but everyone could see, everyone was eating and drinking. So it was very interesting that there was some form of socialization that still happened. And at the same time, I noticed that a lot of my students, when I started encouraging them to go on social media for group activities, a lot of them loved it. So like for the coil classes, for instance, uh, my students had a class with Bethlehem University. They actually formed a group on Messenger. Another formed a group on I think WhatsApp, and then they stayed in touch with each other. So they were not just talking about school stuff, but some of them were actually engaging in business already. So what can we trade, you know? So I think that the technology facilitated not just the social aspect of a relationship between students, but they were encouraged also to explore possible business ventures. So I opened that whole discussion actually with them. So I said, hey, I hope this doesn't stop with just you talking about this class, but you should explore, maybe doing a startup together or trading at least, because I knew quite a lot of the students in Palestine. They had vineyards. I mean, I'm sorry, not vineyards, grapes and
Groups.
fruit, dates. Yeah,
Dates. Yep. Mhm.
it's and so they had nuts also, no? So I said, you could explore this kind of trading relationship that you could do, and explore businesses that you could do together. So that those were some of the things that started. So some of them were talking about that sourcing, and I like the fact that also the minute the lockdowns ceased, I invited the students, okay, we have, because graduate school continued a lot of its online classes, no? So I said, at the end of the term, let's have lunch or dinner together. So pick a date, and then we will meet and we'll talk anything and everything under the sun. So this tradition was something that was born out of the end of the pandemic, even when classes were still conducted online. So I transitioned them from a virtual experience to a face-to-face experience. And of course, the best way to do that is to share a meal together. So the lunch and the dinner started with a lot of the classes after. And sometimes you would even meet, just because there was a desire to meet. Okay. So just to catch up with each other, or even sometimes because someone's getting married. Okay. So it was fascinating because the students in grad school are of different age groups.
Yep.
So you have young, students who, maybe they were just a couple of years out of college, who transitioned immediately to a master's. But then you have older students there who, were working already for a number of years but felt the need to go back to school. So you have young to mid, and older generation students coming together for these, lunches and dinners. So I like the fact that we didn't stay just on the virtual platform, and we were able to transition our transactions to face encounters. So I think you mentioned that earlier, Yazrina, that this is just a start. The
Mhm.
virtual experience is just a start, but you have to move it on to something else. So like the one with Palestine moved on to business
Mhm.
opportunities, or like this one, it moved to the lunches and dinners that it was a combination of professional consulting. Are you looking for a job? I'm hiring right now. So even conversation like that, I want to pirate you. And sometimes it's just talking about, hey, I'm getting married, guys, feed me information on what to expect. Especially the married ones are consulted, but the singles, okay, what's your opinion? Or they're just excited, and they explore how romantic it is. So it's very interesting that the conversation is not just all about work. It's regardless of generation. I noticed that it's not always about work. It was also about life. Okay, their personal lives and what they were doing. So it was just a genuine interest in finding out what everyone was doing, what they wanted to do, what they wanted to share and discuss. And it crossed generations. It didn't matter whether they were young or they were middle aged or they were old. It was this human side, that just wanted to interact and share.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I think one of the things that can never fail is food get people to be together. Okay? When you center anything on food, people get to meet physically, then they'll get together. But one of the strategy that we can actually implement is, of course, something that we have done along the ways in the higher education, which is a cross-generational mentoring programs. All right. We
Mhm.
also use as an academic where the younger academics being mentored by the as a mentee to the senior professors, right? So at the same time we can also do that, like if you are in a school where you have a different mix of students, the adult ones, very senior ones, and very young ones, particularly, especially when you are reaching the third year and the fourth year or the master's level, right? You can pair them so that they would be able to facilitate knowledge transfer. So it's always the get together, right? The get together, I resonate with Dr. Lane. The get together, the physical get together will make people to be able to talk. Okay, that's number one. Then number two is, of course, the professional development and training. All right. As much as we think we are tech savvy, for the older generations who are still in the higher education, all right, there needs to be a proper kind of new tools that is introduced where the students are actually learning very fast and we are slowly learning into it. So proper professional development and training using the communication tools is necessary, and that has to be ongoing, right? And definitely, we have to, at the university level or higher education level, in terms of policies, okay, there needs to be options. Given not only on the traditional methods, of course, we believe face-to-face meetings are always the best method, but we also need to have that modern technologies. We cannot deprive the students, from not using all these modern technologies. Yeah. And I think lastly, what's most important, and most of us, I don't really see, perhaps because I don't come from the social science background, okay, the intergenerational dialogue events. All right. I think this would be very, very good where we can organize forums, panels, okay, that
Yes,
bring together, yeah, the whole community from different background, from different
yes,
age group, yeah, where
yes.
they can share experience and insights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inviting alumni across different generations is good also.
Yeah.
So they can come give everything from career talks and everything. So we started that, I initiated that, inviting alumni for career talks when I was in that office. Then when I was an alumni, for graduating batches to do a meet and greet with alumni. And then recently I suggested, for our commencement, hey, stop inviting the old fogies, can you invite younger alumni before, don't wait until they're near, they're near reaching
Deathbed.
like they're nearing death
Yeah.
already. So I said, invite the younger ones because they're still so vibrant and energetic, and they're great to speak to a graduating class. And they've been doing that, okay, the last couple of years. So you don't have to wait until an alumnus is already old before they can talk, right?
I don't remember anything anymore.
Oh, I hope not.
But
Met-
in the recent summit in Japan last week, they still call Tun Mahathir to talk.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be 99 this July.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how was how was it?
yeah. Our former Prime Minister, Tun
Yeah,
Mahathir. Yeah,
yeah, but how was it? How was
yeah. He can speak very well. Still
Can
speak
still
very
speak
well.
very well. It's very
Like
easy.
70s, like
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, actually, there shouldn't be a concept of retirement anymore because we're introducing the whole concept of lifelong learning,
Yeah.
right? So when you talk about lifelong learning, there shouldn't be different generations or considering people as old or young and whatever. That in itself is not good because remember, gender equality, diversity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
People forget that inclusivity in means also accepting people whatever generation they come from. And I think people forget that as a person ages, their intellectual capital actually increases with age and your network. I mean, your
Mm.
classmates in grade school might be the president or prime minister someday, and
Mhm.
or the head of a corporation, a multinational. So you can never discredit someone just because they're old. You know, the whole concept of ageism is also wrong. That's why when you look at generations, you should look at them from a global perspective, and then, forget labels like who's older, who's younger, and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, I mean, you take a look at us, no? Where we're supposed to be at an older generation that's supposed to be technophobic. But here we are in this session, right? You have to know how to manipulate your desktop or your computer to be able to attend this. You have to know how to get into Zoom or Google and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of prejudice, and we keep on focusing on just gender when diversity is and inclusion is also about age. It's also about profession. It's all about a lot of other important things. That's
Yeah.
why I'm so glad we're talking about this, because when you talk about strategies, it also is about opening people's minds, not just to the impact of technology on people, but also to view the different generations as a collective and not just as a singular, event, a particular generation. And that at the end of the day, you have to awaken a desire in everyone, to get involved. You have to awaken that, desire, so that action will follow, right? So, regardless of your generation, if the desire is not there, you're not going to budge, right? You're not going to move, you're not going to act. So, it's really about that, finding that common ground.
Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. I think you have made the conclusion. Anything 1 minute from you?
Yeah, so basically, the most important thing, the university itself must have inclusive policies and practices. All right, they need to have policies regarding communication, technology use, the feedback mechanism, so that every group is actually onto, is being protected or is being covered. All right, I think that's most important. And not to forget, everyone, we cannot look at different generations. Yes, we try to understand them, but everyone deserves the recognition and appreciation. I think that's the bottom line, where we can actually, when the younger ones being appreciated or the older ones being appreciated, at the end of the day, with their experiences and perspective, that would actually bring what you say, a culture that can dismiss the gap, basically. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, not looking at everybody in the same way in school,
Mhm.
because we have this stereotype. What's the common stereotype? It's the older faculty who doesn't want to learn the technology. But you'll be surprised. There are young faculty who are allergic to technology. So, yeah, so you'll be surprised. It has nothing to do with age. It's more
Yeah.
attitudinal and personality related.
Attitude.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
because I've met a lot of really older faculty. Oh, they're so literate,
And
and
maybe,
you
Dr.
know,
Lake,
it's
not to
like
forget,
really bells and whistles.
Dr. Lake, not to forget the way they take the photo. You know, the very young generations, how they take photos. So the older ones can do that as well.
Yeah.
0.5.
Yeah.
All right. I think that concludes our topic for today. Yeah. Yeah. It has been an interesting discussion. Love, except we don't have the coffee and food to to be presented and eat together. All right. So before I ended this webinar, I would like to thank Dr. Laureen and also Dr. Yasrina. I think maybe because we have known each other for quite some time, we already understand. Yeah, much better. Yeah. All right. And
Thank
also
you
thank you
for
to,
hosting.
pardon?
Thank you for hosting.
Oh, all right. It is also
Hosting.
thank you for Simio Rihan, Christelle, and also a cat. We shall meet again with our next series on other interesting topics. Thank you so much.